Alright, so Mario and Luigi Brothership. First off, my room is hella messy. You're just gonna have to deal with it. I don't feel like cleaning that shit right now. Second of all, this is an off the cuff review. There's too much to talk about. If I try to talk about all of it, we'd be here like all day and then some. Hang on, scratching my nose. We'd be here all flipping day if I try to talk about everything. Um, and I just beat the game last night. I just took a day to process my thoughts, and this is all unscripted, off the cuff. So let's just jump right in. So this is one of my most anticipated games of 2024. Probably my most anticipated game of 2024. Huge fan of the other games, as you all know. And it's just like, oh my god, my nose. Hold on. My shit is itchy, bro. What the heck? As you know, big fan of the other games. Just replayed a lot of them last year. So does this one live up to my expectations? I would say more or less, but I do have some complicated feelings about it. Let's address two elephants in the room before we get into everything. One is the length. I was a little over 40 hours, but I did take the game very slow, doing all the side content, and I did AFK, leave my Switch on for a few hours. Let's say you're going to be at around 35 to 40 hours if you take the game slow and do everything like I did. It's very long. It's very long. If you saw my short the other day, forgive me for releasing a short, by the way. It was not my intention. Anyway, if you saw that, then you know that by the last leg, I was really over and ready for the game to be over. But the finale redeemed it in a big way. The last hour or two were really, really good. One of the better final battles in the series, which I will talk about in more detail in a second. Second elephant in the room is something that subtly makes the game really frustrating to play. Something you wouldn't expect or think about really, or think that it brings the game like play experience down massively. But when you actually like are playing it, it affects it a lot, and that's the encounter rate. The encounter rate in this game is just sky high. Compared to other games, there are so many overworld enemies, and they are so much more aggressive. They chase you so much faster, so much longer. They're just so much more desperate to scrap than they've ever been before, which makes it very, very difficult to avoid, billions and billions and billions of encounters. It makes it kind of frustrating, honestly, because a lot of the side quests, like I said, I did all the side stuff, entail revisiting islands you've already been to. And a problem you're going to encounter, see what I did there, is the enemies are just going to aggro to you. These low-level peon enemies that give no experience, wasting your time, getting into encounters you don't want to get in. And, even if it's only one turn to kill them, it's like, well, why don't we just pull an Earthbound and just swat them like a fly right there on the overworld, or have them run away from you. It's maddening. It made some areas of the game very painful to play, even on first blush, because it's like, well, I'm trying to focus on the puzzle or the traversal, and there's so many encounters. The final area especially, which again, we will talk about in a second. With those two things out of the way, how is the game overall? It's good. It's good for the most part with a few asterisks. So let's talk about... that's my eye. Nose again. Ugh. Let's get into the main way this game is different from the other games. Luigi has much more independence than he's ever had. Both in the story and just the way you use him in the overworld, the combat, everything. You do not directly control Luigi anymore. You can control when he jumps, but he has kind of his own AI, and if you just jump, he will more or less try his best to mimic what you do. Sometimes he'll go off and do his own thing, and you could even command him to do stuff for you. It's one of those things where if you're familiar with the series, it's going to take some adjusting, because for those first few hours, it was kind of weird. But once you're used to it, it's not too bad. But the problem is that there's some parts where the Luigi AI, especially when it comes to the platforming, when you get hazards involved and you got to avoid this shit while doing precise jumps, the Luigi AI can't keep up, and it becomes a real problem. Not as much of a problem as the encounter rate. The encounter rate is a subtle thing where it's like you don't think it's going to bring that gameplay experience down, but it really does at some parts. Oh my goodness gracious. I could go on and on about it. But the Luigi AI thing isn't going to come up every area, but when it comes up, it's going to be really frustrating because it's the first time in the series where I was struggling with some of the platforming. First of all, just first time I was struggling with some of the platforming in general because the controls I feel like aren't quite as precise as the other games. But I felt like it was through no fault of my own because Luigi is fucking up a jump that I just did perfectly, or he's falling way behind. And this is the only game where he can fall behind like that because he doesn't follow close behind you and mimic you exactly. And when he falls way behind, it plays this annoying ass cutscene where it's like Mario and you gotta get him and it's like, oh my god. So okay, we're 5 minutes in and we've barely talked about anything. Let's get into the meat of the game, the gameplay. The combat is pretty much what you've come to expect from these games. Some subtle differences to make it different, but really it's kind of standard. In terms of the combat, it's about as solid as you come to expect. I would put it on par with like Paper Jam or like Inside Story combat, which are both very good. For all my grievances with Paper Jam, the combat is not really one of them, other than the length of bros attacks. The battle plug system is the big one to talk about when it comes to the combat, and honestly, it's very good. It's very fun to play around with. The thing is, and we're going to talk about that, like a lot of things in this game, it takes kind of a minute before you have enough plugs to really like, and then slots increase as well as you go on. It takes a minute to get enough where it feels like you're allowed to experiment the way you really want to. You know what I mean? Like, for those first few hours, it's like, oh, well, I equip this, it drops an iron ball on them, whatever. The crazy combos and, like, trying different stuff, that comes much later. And it's like, well, damn. My nose again. Oh, sorry, it's really dry in here. It's also really shitty outside in general, so my sinuses. Anyway, so the plug system, I think, was a W for the most part. It gets much better later in the game. And while we're talking about that, might as well talk about the slow start. This game has become kind of notorious for having a slow start, kind of infamous. Me personally, I expected it, but I would say that this is actually one of the slower starts in the whole series, rivaled only by Dream Team, which is crazy because they all have slow starts, but this takes it to a just crazy level. Like, it's several hours in before you get your hammer. So it's only jump attacks, and on the overworld you have no hammers for, I want to say, around 5 hours ish of gameplay. This is going to be a recency bias issue because, as you know, again, if you watch the short, I took massive breaks in between playing. So the earlier in the game we get, the fuzzier it's going to be in my memory. You know, it took almost 3 months for me to beat it. That's just how it is, you know, being employed and everything. It's hard to make time to play stupid games made for children. So the start is extremely slow. I want to say those first 10 hours or so, like the game, it takes around 10-ish hours for the heavy tutorialized parts to get over with, and for the world to open up the way you want, where you can just move the ship around, explore unique islands, and just have a little bit of freedom, which was actually very good once we got to that point. And it's a painful, like, this game's not going to replay it anytime soon just because of that. After you get the hammers, it takes several hours before you get your first bros attack, and for a while, and when I say while, I mean multiple bosses, a while, you're just playing with shells only. You have green shell and red shell. They're essentially the same attack. One of them is single target. Nose again. One of them is group target. Green shell group, red shell single. But, you know, same command. You know how shells work at this point if you've played these games for any amount of time. That's all you get for a long time. And in general, it was a long wait between bros attacks. It's definitely probably the worst since Inside Story, I would say. If, like, once you get the overpowered bros attacks, the other ones just become irrelevant. I was also slightly let down by the number of bros attacks. Ultimately, you only get around 5 a bro, but a lot of them mirror each other in the sense that the action commands are very similar and the functionality is very similar. So I would say the combat overall solid, but I don't know. It kind of left me wanting a little bit more, mostly in the bros attacks department, and also it got a little paper jammy by the end with the length of the bros attacks, especially the new ones. There's a lot of returning ones, which I wasn't exactly expecting. I was a little disappointed by. I know that in the trailers, when they showed off the normal attacks, everybody got hyped because they thought the non-item bros attacks were coming back from Superstar Saga. I don't think they're ever coming back, guys. It is cool that they help each other out during the normal attacks. I thought it was going to get annoying. I thought I was going to get tired of it. I never really did, especially because the battle plugs changed the way, there's certain ones where you could change the attack patterns and stuff. It kept it relatively fresh. I would say I was never exactly bored of the combat, but I was a little bit like wanting more from it. In the terms of the exploration, moving the ship around, visiting various islands, pretty solid. One of the more unique things about the game, I liked exploring the various islands. I like feeling like I could take a break from the story and just explore for a minute, collect reefs. The islets all have their little mini things that they can do. That was nice and kind of a breath of fresh air. But ultimately, sorry. Oh my goodness gracious. But ultimately, yeah. It was great. Nothing crazy. As for the whole overworld movement in general, not that crazy. About what you expect from these games by now. A lot of the bros like attacks, like you got one that hovers, you got one where they shoot fireballs. It should all feel a little familiar to you at this point. The spin dash, the roll thing though, kind of locked in. At first I was sleeping on it, but then I started realizing, hey, you could just use this for movement. And with how aggro the enemies were, I was using it to just dodge the enemies, and not get into a billion regular encounters when I'm trying to do a stupid side quest. So I guess we could talk about the. Well, let's talk about the story. Like I said, it's not going to be very structured. Let's talk about the story because I've seen a few criticisms of the story. It's overly simplistic, the dialogue, etc., etc. I would say that for what they were going for with the story, they succeeded in a big way. Really, like the dialogue is simplistic. The themes are simplistic. It's written in a way that children will be able to understand. The children are not going to read this and be thematically confused on what they're going for. It's about connections, guys. Bonds are important. Connections are important. People can't survive without bonds and connections. Like my dog could understand this. God rest his little soul. So, um, but honestly, it didn't bother me too much because that's more or less what I expected and more or less in line with what the other games were about. It was nice to have a theme connecting everything. See what I did there? It had a lot of thematic coherence. All the side quests were about like family bonds or friend bonds and reuniting people, and they did have some subtlety and nuance to it. And above all, the characters in this game, guys, are just so cute. Connie is my daughter. Ark, I would probably die for him. And most of the characters in the story, like Tech Nikki, I thought she could get a little techno babbly annoying at times, but I did like her overall. The Idol kids, their relationship with Peach and Starlo was very cute and enjoyable. The antagonist group was fun. Zakid, I thought, was slightly underutilized, but fun whenever he showed up. And the fight, like I said, that final hour or two, man, I was literally watching the credits and I was tearing up a little because I've just become, without even really realizing, being my bitter, cynical self who finds fault in everything, I just somewhere along the way became attached to these characters in this world. I became really invested in seeing them succeed. There's this one cutscene that really puts it into perspective where whenever you free one of the great lighthouses, which is the MacGuffin of this game, you have to free 5 of them to save Concordia. Connie uses her Wattnist abilities and puts a watering can on it, and then the bros celebrate with her in a really cute way, and it's just like, dude, every time, like, my heart was like skipping a little beat because it's just so cute. It's so easy to like these characters. Most of the side stories were enjoyable, serviceable. I guess we can segue into talking about the side quests now. They were mostly fine. It was a lot of go here, talk to this person, then talk to the quest giver. That was pretty much 99% of them. The ones that were interesting were the ones where you were like there's these two bros that live on the sand island that where sometimes they give you a treasure map and you find a hidden island you hadn't seen before. That was cool and locked in, but for the most part, you know, it was a lot of go here, go to this area, you've already been, kill this enemy, talk to me, talk to this person, talk to me. A lot of them took less than 5 minutes. It was so easy to get them all out of the way, but I do think it added to the runtime. Some of the challenging the bosses, the Gloam version of the bosses were interesting. Not too hard. In general, the difficulty was extremely low in this game, I have to say. And I think it's on me for doing the side stuff, which led to me being slightly over leveled at some parts. But since we're jumping around, I guess we'll go to talking about the final area a little. I'm going to do this spoiler free, by the way. We're not going to get into heavy spoilers here. So I will just talk about it in a general sense. But the final area, very cool, very interesting. But I just felt like I was breezing through most of these normal encounters. I fought the final boss. And just when I thought it was like a Sea of Stars boss, bro. Just when I thought it was getting started, it's like, oh, he's dead. Oh, that's it. There's like one more victory lap cutscene, and that's it. They beat him. I will say, minor spoilers. Skip ahead 20 seconds if you want no spoilers at all, but it was so nice to have a final boss that wasn't Bowser. And so I think that the beginning is a little rough. The middle portion is mostly good, but there was a portion around like the fourth Great Lighthouse where I'm just like, well, I'm sinking into the monotony of it. It's not that good. But there's this, when Bowser shows up in the story in the fifth and final area, the story takes a swing, and it had me gripped, frankly. And it's been a while. That's one thing. The cutscene. Oh, I didn't talk about the graphics at all. The graphics, one of the best looking Switch games, bro. The best Mario has ever looked. I'm being so serious. The cutscenes lock in extremely hard in this game. They are gorgeous. And they add a lot of stakes, a lot of tension to the story because they're just so good and they convey so much emotion with the new models. I think that's a big part of the reason why I was getting so attached to everything. So graphically, it's a W. The cutscenes are gorgeous. I could watch them all day, and I even got emotional at some parts. Yeah. So what have I not talked about? I talked about mostly everything. Let's talk about some of the frustrating things besides the just the extremely high encounter rate, which is just the general tedium. You know, a lot of this game is backtracking. It's a Mario RPG, so you should have seen that one coming. Recency bias, but I do think the final area, for as interesting as it was in concept, was frustrating the hell out of me. I was playing this in a call with some people. I got to get a Switch capture card, but I'm not playing any games until Switch 2. Switch 1 is such a POS. But I was playing in a call with people, and I was getting very frustrated by the extremely high encounter rate. And just, they introduced a mechanic where if you get hit by this stage hazard, this overworld hazard, you lose a bro. So you have to backtrack to get them and then go through the same obstacle course again and possibly fight enemies that you avoided on the first go around. It was hard. It was easy to avoid it, but when you got hit by it, the consequences were sky high. It was crazy. Let's see. What have I not? I'm trying to get everything out there. I know I'm forgetting stuff. I didn't write anything down. I don't play games while taking notes because, come on, I have a job. That's enough. The new companion character, Snoutlet, I liked him. He was cute. He was helpful. He was encouraging. He was nice to Luigi, which was big. You know, Starla, one of her first lines is making fun of Luigi, and it just reminded me why if she was right there, I would stomp on her with cleats. But yeah, it was fun. So overall, a bit of a mixed bag. It was way too long. A little bit too easy. I think that was also becoming a problem as the game went on for me. It was hard for me to stay engaged when nothing was that difficult. To which I will say, the combat isn't really in and of itself so easy that you could just breeze through it. But the battle plugs that get more overpowered as you unlock more of them, it made it easy. The final boss, I beat him easily without really trying, but that's because I had the auto 1-up thing equipped for the whole time. And I didn't die that much, but when I did die, there was no consequence at all for 5 times. They also refill your plugs before the final battle, which I'm like, well, what was the point of me saving some of these for this one then if they were going to get free refilled anyway? In general, the final battle is kind of weirdly structured. He has a lot of phases, but most of them you breeze through. Like, before you even realize that you're on to the next phase, it looks like it's going to be a Dark Star Core situation where you beat it, where you fight him, where you fight his one version and then you go back to fighting the big version. But no, it just ends. Which was a little disappointing. Again, recency bias. You have to understand, I took around a 5-week break at one point of not playing at all. So some of the middle portion kind of muddled together. But overall, I would say story is very, very cute. I would say probably really best story in one of these games. I mean, pretty simplistic. It's not winning any like Oscars or anything, but it is very cute for what they were going for, and they succeeded. I got attached to these characters. There was one thing which bothered me, which was a big twist that I won't spoil, which was revealed in a dry exposition dump by a character that we only met 5 minutes ago. And it was frustrating as heck because the whole game was basically building to this huge twist, and you just reveal it in an exposition dump when it could have been revealed at a much more dramatic moment. Like the character takes their mask off and it's like, what? It was that person the whole time? That's how it should have been. Instead, we just get told it. And you know what? The most important character that it pertains to wasn't even present for it. So it's like, it didn't land for me. That was probably my biggest complaint with the story. Other than that, it's hard to complain because they're not out to win any like writing or like prestigious awards here. But yeah, overall, I thought combat was fun. The Luigi logic stuff was cute. I got a little tedious, and just generally, I like what they were going for with the handling of Luigi in this game, giving him a lot more independence, letting you order him around, the Luigi logic stuff. But I do kind of hope that if they do make more of these games, fingers crossed, They go back to the old style where Luigi just follows close behind you, mimics everything you do. I don't mind pressing A and B to jump. It never got that annoying, especially when the later games added the Y to make them both jump at the same time. Let's let's get that going again. And yeah, I just don't have too many major complaints about the game. The biggest one by a mile would be that it does drag at times. It is too long, and there are some times where the tedium will just be setting in, or you hit one slightly frustrating area. There was one time during that final area where I was trying to beat it like earlier this week, and I just hit a part that was so frustrating, and I got hit by that stupid pollen. I got knocked back so far. I just turned it off for the day. I did not turn it back on. I did not feel like going back and doing that again. And that's a result of the game just being too long. The start is too slow. But I will say the middle portion is pretty fun. It just gives you a lot of freedom. You can take a break from the story. You could explore. It's a beautiful world. Everything looks great. Oh, right. We better talk about the performance. Dude, Switch 1 is so bad, man. Switch 1 is so bad. I am so happy Switch 2 is now announced and coming sometime this year because Switch 1, awful. It can't run its own games. There is one point at the last leg of the game where where the main villain covers the world in fog. And this fog covers every area. So if you're trying to wrap up side quests, anything, there's going to be this fog. And the Switch can't run its own game, so the fog creates performance issues. And in general, the performance was very spotty. A lot of chugs, a lot of just frame skips and drops, and ruined a lot of good scenes for me. And it's like, if I had the willpower to replay a 40-hour RPG, I would say, well, this one will be replayed when Switch 2 comes out. If I knew Switch 2 was coming so soon, I might have even waited. That's probably what I'm going to do with Prime 4. If it comes out before Switch 2, I'm going to wait. Because this paperweight, you see it over there. You see that damn thing. I'm done with it. Cover it up. Cover that junk up. We're done with Switch 1. Okay, this is the last game I play on Switch 1. The performance is bad. Graphics, amazing. Best Mario's ever looked. Gameplay, pretty solid. The battle system is basically as good as you'd expect. The battle plugs are very fun to mess with, but it does lead to some overpowered combos that trivialize a lot of the challenge. And overall, it was just, it's a hard game to hate, man. It was just too long. That's my main complaint. If it was like 5 hours shorter, I would say contender for best in the series, maybe. The other ones I like a lot more, and like they get to the point. They don't waste your time as much. The mini games also weren't quite up to like the quality you come to expect. A lot of them is just press a button with timing. And in general, that was a big problem with the Bros Attacks too, is that a lot of them were just boiled down to press a button with timing. There wasn't a lot of intuition to them. But I will say that at the end of the game, they give you Bros Attacks that are more complicated than press a button with timing. And then I was getting frustrated because they were too complicated and took too long. So there's no pleasing me. So just ignore me, basically. But overall, I'm not going to give it a number score or anything. It's very good. If you like the series, I can't see you disliking this one. I do see why the reviews are mixed generally. If you don't like games with slow starts that treat you like a moron for a lot of the game, like the tutorialization is pretty egregious yet again. It takes a long time to unlock everything, and generally the start is agonizingly slow. But once that world opens up, it becomes a lot of fun. The characters, I was always having a good time. Every time they were talking, I was paying attention. The cutscenes were cute, and just generally, it's a hard game to hate, man. So again, not gonna give it a number score. I would recommend it if you like the series. If you don't like Mario RPGs, I don't see this one like swaying you. I don't see this one being the one to change your mind. If you do like Mario RPGs or you're not sure, I would say give it a try. You might be surprised a little bit. But yeah, that's it. That's the Brothership review. I said everything I needed to say. I think I got it all the way. Some of the side content, other than side quests, is like finding all the sprite bulbs, the Grampy turnips. I don't even want to listen to them. Luckily, I found them all. So we're done with that. And then the reefs, it's a lot. It's going to be a long game to 100%, I think. I'm actually pretty close, so I might just push over the finish line. But we'll see. But yeah, overall, I enjoyed my time with the game. I might even revisit it one day, but not anytime soon. And goodbye to Switch 1, bro. Say goodbye, you piece of cheap junk. Hopefully, for the next Mario and Luigi game, we'll be playing on a system that can actually run it. So thank you. Thank you for waiting. It took a long time. There was so many days where I just did not feel like playing. And of the days where I did feel like playing, my time was pretty limited. So sorry it took a while. Sorry I'm so late to the party. But yeah, good game overall. So thanks for watching. See you, and I'm not doing a YouTuber outro, man. You already know. See you later.